Today is a fun day at Gearhead Garage. What we're doing is tuning a bunch of these LS cars. We're working out all the little kinks on them, doing the drivability. So today we're gonna do some basic tuning. I'll talk to you about some of the computer tuning on these electronically controlled engines, why they need it, what you do, and go over just some of the basics. And you can watch and come along with us while we do it. This 66 Nova that's got an LS3 GM crate motor. It already runs, fired right up. We bought a harness that had a pre-programmed tune in it, but no tune is perfect for any given car. They're all kind of custom per car. So what we do is we get in here after that base tune is in there, and this actually has a computer. It's all GM electronics, but it's running a computer from PSI Performance Wiring, so they did their initial tune already, but we're finding already that it's a little bit rich, so we're leaning it out, adjusting some of the start parameters. We'll get in and drive it and really set some of the fuel mapping, make sure the mass airflow is working right, get full throttle, and just kind of walk through a bunch of that stuff. Well, number one reason you want to tune your car, I love that sound. Number one reason you want to get your car tuned is that you're trying to make everything safe in terms of like performing properly. So you want to get the fuel trims right, which is most important, so you can't lean the engine out, you can't hurt the engine. Lean is mean, they say. That's where you make horsepower. Rich stinks. Rich stinks, so you know we want the car to burn clean, right? It's comfortable. I don't need to be burning my eyes when I'm smashing around. Other things we're trying to do here, you can play with timing, which is a tweak you can do to kind of change the idle note. That's not what we're doing, but you can. When we do drive it, we're going to make sure it doesn't do things like ping or detonate, so we're making sure that we're not getting any knocking or pinging. Also, what we'll do is we'll rev the gas and make sure that the throttle follower kind of lets it drop back down to a nice clean idle. Some of these cars, if they don't have the speedometer hooked up through the computer, when you get off the freeway, the engine kind of RPMs hang and they come low. If it has that hooked up, the throttle follower, the RPMs and speed will all kind of talk to the computer, and the idle will come down nicely for nice drivability. If you don't do that, you might hit the gas and it might hang, or you come to a stop real quick and RPMs might go real low and try to die. So what we're trying to do is smooth that out. If you're looking graphically like the stock market or something, right, you're gonna have peaks and valleys, and we're just trying to smooth most of these curves. That's a generic overview. So what we're using right now is HP tuners. It's a very advanced setup that my tuner has. Obviously anybody can buy HP tuners. He used to work for GM and has been doing tuning forever. So the HP tuners is the best platform that we've found. He's got a couple different laptops if we're tuning, whether it be a GM computer or if we're going into a Holley computer. A lot of LSs will run the Holley. Dominator, Terminator X Max are great ways to fly. If you've got like turbo superchargers, that Holley system is so smart. It's got all these different programmable inputs and outputs. The GM setup's pretty awesome as well. It's super reliable. You can do things like flex fuel, so I can go E85 to regular and it'll sense it just like a new Suburban might, right? So just trying to integrate the technology. It takes two people to do this because as a rule, I'll be the one driving, Mark will be the one tuning the car, and as we do that, we're both going to be looking at things. I'm going to be looking at how the car feels, drives, and performs, and he's going to be watching all the data, seeing if the O2 sensors are commanding more fuel, pulling fuel, stuff of that nature. Good to go?
Yeah, let's go drive it.
Okay, sounds fun. For some reason, the fuel pump on this one's a little loud, but we'll see if it quiets down.
I don't hear it.
Just when I first prime it, you kind of hear like a little. Good to go?
Yep.
You can tell we're tuning a car that's been sitting in the shop, right? She's all dusty, wires hanging down, stuff rattling in the console. That's the raw experience. That's what makes it fun, though. Yeah, just kind of tell me what you want me to do if I'm just piping through or step on it, or
Oh, it's still really rich.
make sure I've got gas. That's always a good
So far
good
it looks
thing.
like you do, because it's really, really rich. It's pulling out. It's rich and it's pulling out 27%.
27%.
Sure this thing has LS3 injectors in it and not
Yeah,
LSA injectors?
it's a GM crate.
Okay.
It's the either the 495 or the 525. I'd have to double check, but I'm sure it's a 495. Because as you and I talked so many times, you like the 495 seems to outperform that 525 in terms of power and drivability, right? Enough vacuum to run the brakes and
Probably just go right still too rich.
Is it?
Find a place to pull over. Go ahead and shut it down.
So this is basically every time we're tuning, we're driving around, he's watching what it's doing. We pull over, try to find a safe spot to do so. It's a good test because we can see if the car starts or if we're pushing and walking back. So you're pulling more fuel out?
Yeah. It's pulling out 22% up there. Well, you know, this one has a bend right before
This
it.
one does have a sharper
that
bend to it, yeah.
skews
And I
your
know we
mass
don't love
airflow.
that, yeah. Yeah, what Mark's talking about right now is that a lot of times when you're coming out of the throttle body, you've got an intake tube that curves and it's got a mass airflow sensor. And turn the computer on so you can actually engage it. But it's got an intake tube with a mass airflow sensor on these. If it doesn't have a mass airflow sensor, it's called speed density is the way that tune is set up. But this is going to meter airflow coming in. And any curves around that cause turbulence, and it just totally messes up the reading. So it's very important to have a nice, smooth, sloping curve and get that blade, you know, what, 6 or 8 inches at least away from any curve. We did that that supercharged car right the other day, and Mert had put that that bypass valve in there, and it created just enough turbulence that you couldn't even barely get it to run. It's so crazy. The car ran perfect, and then we made one little change, and then totally like dead in the water. So it's important that you know what you're doing when you're tuning these things, because you can get all out of whack.
Definitely.
And I see that's what you do. It's kind of like one change at a time, right? You'll change something, see what that does,
Keep creeping up on it.
work on it, yeah, sneak up on it, and then go after another change. And constantly saving them, right? So that way you know what you did. It's kind of a scientific deal. We do that like in drag racing, right? One change at a time, because otherwise you don't know what did I do that fixed it or affected it. Would be, there's that loud pump.
Go ahead and start it. Let's go ahead and drive it before she hits us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still rich, but it's within the range of adjustment now.
Okay. The other thing I like anytime you and I are doing this is I can tell like the gauges are just set in here loose, so I can hear rattles, and I'm doing all kinds of other QC stuff while you're doing that.
Yep. Okay, let's probably go down to second gear and come off from about 1,000 RPMs and go ahead and roll into it pretty good. That's good. Now let's pull over again.
And then kill it.
Yeah.
Key back on or no?
Yeah.
So what we're doing there is I actually put it in second gear and get the RPMs low, and then take off on it, not trying to do a burnout or anything, just actually trying to lug the engine so it's and pulls so he can see what it's doing under a load. And what makes a good tuner, Mark? Somebody that's got a lot of experience, that's done it a bunch, has seen it all? Is it the software that's the main thing? Is it?
Gotta know what you're doing. Oh, every car is different. Every transmission is different. So none of them are going to work perfectly out of the box, or very rarely.
Yeah, anything that's fuel injected, and you don't do like a lot of the Holley Sniper stuff, but you do a lot of the Holley Dominator and Terminator and all that.
Anything else, yeah.
And then this one's almost easy, right? Because it's a stick, but normally Mark's in there messing with shift firmness and
You can spend more time tuning a transmission than you do an engine.
yeah, automatic transmissions are very complicated. When we did the silver Camaro on the dyno, there was one part where it started to buck a little bit because it tried to downshift on its own like it normally would on the street. And you had to turn that off because you're trying to create real world driving versus dyno versus, right? They're kind of, it seems like we wind up tuning them like this, or they got to be tuned enough to run, right? You can't just start them out of the box without somebody having gone in there and flashed it. Then we wind up tuning them for drivability, and then if we're going to dyno it, you do that and rip on it, and I swear every time we do that, you got to tune it again, right, to get
The idle sometimes.
yeah, to just get it perfect. It's a pursuit of perfection.
It's a process.
I think it's worth it though. I mean,
obviously you think it's worth it. You know, that's
Well,
why
if
you
you
do
have
it.
this much money invested in a car, why wouldn't you spend a little more and make it run right?
Yeah, if you feel bad dropping that last $500 on all the final tuning or something, but I think at the end of the day, like, you know, in terms of dyno and stuff, but you always leave with more power. It's safe and it leaves with more power. Like, I don't really care about the number. I just want to know the car's on point. And then that's what the customers want, right?
Exactly.
The weirdest thing about all these LS cars when we do them is they leave, the customer takes it, and like I have to call them. I'm like, are we good? And they're like, oh, we're fine. The car runs great. They don't call me back, you know. They tend to only call when they have problems, and all of these cars are, knock on wood, running around the streets every which way.
Go ahead and start it. Okay, let's go ahead and drive it.
Yeah, once we're done, then I get to finally, we got aligned yesterday, so I can put the horn button back on and program the speedo, charge the AC.
Go ahead and stand on it in a second. All the way.
My hood popped up.
Whoops. Let's pull over and
The most annoying part when we're doing this is when people pull over and they're like, are you okay? You need help? We're like, we're good. We're just stopping randomly.
go ahead and shut it off. All my fuel trims look good. There's no pinging. I know where the spark table should be. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do, and the drivability is great.
Yeah, when what you're seeing looks right and what I'm feeling looks
One more
right,
click.
right?
Yep. No stalling, no irregular running. Drivability is nice, what it's supposed to be, and then it goes like that when you get on it.
Right. No buck, snort, pop, stall.
Irregular running. Drivability is nice, what it's supposed to be, and then it goes like that when you get on it.
Right. No buck, snort, pop, stall.
So does it ever need to be retuned? Can something kick it out of tune?
Nope. The only thing that'll change it is if something changes mechanically. Fuel pressure, fuel filter gets plugged up, you know, dirt in the fuel, foul the plug for some reason, something like that. Other than that, it doesn't. The tune is permanent.
Yeah, that's a good question because I get people all the time like, if I don't want to shut off my battery, I'm worried it's going to erase the tune. Like, the tune's permanent. But the other thing people always tend to think, and I don't know why they think this, is that, you know, a tune can be the only problem, right? It's still got spark plugs, right? It's still got fuel.
Spark
it's
plug
still got
wires.
wires. I mean, you can't tune through a mechanical issue, right? And I've done that with you where you're like trying to tune something, you know. Well, it was like that intake tube on the Camaro. You're like, I get something's going on. Well, it was an airflow issue. You're like, well, I can only increase everything, you know, 10x or whatever, but you can't compensate for that.
Yep. Go ahead and start it.
Think we'll be a little longer drive and I'll go down past
Sure.
the mall to the freeway, or do I
Sure.
just go back
No, that's
here?
fine.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
How long does it typically take?
That's a loaded
Oh.
question.
Well, I get really smart people that want to use aluminum flywheels and lightweight clutches, and it'll take 2 hours to get it to idle.
Uh-huh.
This one's pretty dialed to start with as far as drivability wise. I'm just getting all the fuel trims right, making sure it's not pinging. So usually it's an hour to 2 hours.
We try to find all those problems before
Right.
before you come over, right? Or certainly before you go to the dyno. You don't want to dirty your diaper and spring a leak on the dyno or something. That's just a waste of everybody's time. Nice and crisp, right? There goes that hood again. Put that on the list. Adjust hood, latch, striker, or something. And you need to shut down and
No.
see anything? Okay. Yeah, it feels like it pulls away nice and smooth. Almost feels like it hangs a little when I tell me. That's what I was talking about earlier, where when you let off the clutch and you feel if the RPMs come down slow, fast, too low.
I can try taking a little tweak on that. My biggest concern is I don't want it to stall.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't have the AC on or anything else right now.
And that'll bring it down faster too.
Yeah, and that doesn't hang. A lot of these cars, like this car, have, because it's an LS3 with a GM electronics, it's running a drive-by-wire. My gas pedal's electronic, and it's controlled through wiring directly to the throttle, all the way to the throttle body up front. So it doesn't have a cable that can hang up like on a traditional carbureted car. It's all electronic. Some people are scared of that, but I mean, that's technology, right? That's the best way to go. Yeah, if the hood wasn't popping all the time,
there it goes.
it's got the good hook on it, I'm assuming, but we'll slow down.
Yeah, that's the kind of excitement no one needs.
I do not need the hood to fly up on a painted car, nor do I really want to stop on the side of the road. But
We're okay now. We can head back. We're going slow enough.
I think that's why a lot of people run hood pins.
Yep.
It does idle a little high right there.
In the last 25 years, I've had 2 of them pop open
Fly up, or
while driving. Yeah.
wow,
My tuning a car.
that's scary.
The worst was a 57 because we were doing over 100.
Ooh.
The hood, the pins on the hood dented
Yeah.
the roof.
Oh god. That's all bad.
Yep.
I had a Chevelle, I think it was like a 71 Chevelle when I was like 17. I think we bought it from the junkyard or something. And it had the hood spike in it, but no hinges. And it popped and the hood flew up in the air. Came down behind the car, didn't hurt anything other than the hood, which was already a junkyard hood. So I'll pull over here one more time. Stuff like that hood popping up that makes you, concerned with all the safety stuff all the time, right? Because it's like anything could happen with these cars, and does. It makes it real challenging being a business owner because you have to worry about everything, right?
It's almost 60 years old too.
Yeah. And then we're also only as good as the parts we can buy, right? We get aftermarket parts and hope they're good, and if they're poor quality, like what do you do?
Okay, so rev it up a little bit, just flip it.
Had like a little bog.
Let it stabilize. Okay, go ahead and do it again.
Is that like
It's
a,
lean
yeah,
on
you hear
tip.
that?
Yeah, it's lean on tip down. Okay, go ahead and shut it off. What I'm doing now is failing the mass airflow sensor, and I'm going to adjust the VE. So
You think it
hopefully
might
doesn't-
have to do with the curve in the tube?
Yeah, I think it's.
Because this one comes kind of back, because
Mhm.
it has to.
And then if I look at when you blipped it, there it did. So you went down to minus 1.3. Probably torque management. Go ahead and start it. At least you found him. Okay, so go ahead and shut it off. So here it's pulling out about 20%.
This is where all the fine tuning really comes in. It's like you're making every little last adjustment, trying to just get it right. How many tuners do you think out of tuners are good tuners? Everybody seems to talk smack about each other, I noticed.
Yeah, I don't know.
And what is a good tuner, right? Like
Yeah.
I think I've heard one person say they didn't like your tune, and it's because you wouldn't get them that extra half horsepower on the dynamo.
Yeah, and those
right?
are the guys.
And blow their
Those are
engine
the
up
those
front.
are the guys that whine the worst when it blows up. Center. Okay. Key on. And the difference between ragged edge and safe is 5 horsepower.
Right.
So why wouldn't you save the 5 horsepower and get 100,000+ miles on your car?
I'm the same way. Like, I don't need to live on the edge. Like, build it with enough power and
Drag
then detune
racers-
it a tiny bit.
Drag racers don't care. They want to win.
Well, that's because they have, what do they say? The best way to become a millionaire drag racing is to start out as a billionaire. Just throw money at it.
How do you
all
make a
day.
small fortune in a hot rod business? Start with a large fortune.
Why didn't you tell me that 20 years ago? Well, that's another reason you dyno cars, right? Is obviously you can get them safe, but like today is sunny and we're able to go drive around. But like when we're getting a lot of these high horsepower cars, you don't want to rope them loose on the street. That's dangerous.
You can't go wide open throttle on the street. Go ahead and start
Way
it.
you can actually do that is on the dyno.
Okay, flip the throttle. Nice and smooth.
That was crisper, yeah.
Okay, go ahead and shut it off. Vehicle disconnect. We went to 3,300,
So now he's going back to a snapshot in time and he can walk through and see what the numbers were and then change those up or down to smooth it.
well, I adjusted the VE and now I'm turning the mass airflow back on.
So you adjust the VE, which is volumetric efficiency, and is
Yep.
that just like the sensitivity
Go ahead,
then
turn
of
the
it,
key
or
on.
what is that base compared to mass airflow?
No, just turn the key on.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. Well, so here's the mass airflow table. So that's a 2-dimensional table, and it looks at mass airflow, and it measures the molar mass of the air going into the motor and changes it to a frequency, and it uses that for steady state. Then for transitional fueling, this has algorithm because it's variable cam timing available, but it has a virtual VE. So it's a lot faster for the computer to use a virtual VE than it is to have an actual VE. But once the VE is dialed, at least down low, and the mass airflow is dialed, then it runs just like stock, even though you've changed the intake manifold, you've changed the cam, different air cleaner system. You're making all that work with all the components you have on the vehicle.
And is that why, for example, sometimes it'll just go like dead pedal, like you go into limp mode because something will get out of parameter and something else,
There's
the
safety stuff
crisscrossing,
in there.
yeah.
There's safety
You
stuff. If
notice
it
it's an
exceeds it,
outlier.
especially the GM stuff, has super conservative on the safety stuff for the throttle. They never go wide open on their own. They just stop.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's good.
It is. But now all federal law requires when you put the brake on, the gas pedal can't overcome the brake.
Oh, really?
Go ahead and start it.
That's probably a good thing.
On stock cars. It does stop you from doing a nasty power brake though.
Yeah, it takes the fun out of it.
But most of them don't have enough power to do it anyway, so flip it. That's good. And I made it come down a hair faster too.
Yeah.
So.
And these aren't designed like to sit in free rev anyways, right?
No.
I know people, you have a little nasty small block and it's like gag gag, but these things will still outperform that. Well, depends how nasty that small block is.
It'd have to be real nasty. Good deal. Yeah, we're good.
Temps and everything
Yeah.
look okay.
Must have a colder thermostat. It's running in the 170s.
It does, yeah. Okay, good. In the Sacramento heat, I prefer it to run a little cool.
Go ahead and shut her down.
That's a wrap for the Nova.
It's a wrap for the Nova.
All right.
So that's basically what it takes in a nutshell to do LS tuning with HP tuners. Not getting super technical in it. Obviously, if you want to learn all that, there are websites that can tell you about that. There's videos that talk about it. I just kind of wanted to give you guys an overview. This is an LS3 495 horse GM crate motor. We talked a little bit about VE tables and mass airflow. That's the mass airflow sensor there. We have this mild curve here. Just that little bit of curve before the sensor kind of throws it off a little bit, and it's trying to think and it's trying to calculate. So we had to smooth that table as you saw, and make that run better. Other than that, I said drive-by-wire throttle, so that kind of shows you what that there is. And then overall, we put an aftermarket intake on here. We've got headers, aftermarket pulley system, and the reason we tune it is so he can get it all smooth and working together seamlessly. Right now, she's running great, so we'll work on our little bugs, the stupid hood latch, and some other stuff, and get this car rolling down the road. Thanks for tuning in.